Hello guys, Phoenix61 here with your Legend Shenanigans, and Shenanigans today is what we have exactly. This is Brawl, so this is through the weekend. It is battleships and only secondaries, and yeah, we're gonna just melt like butter this California with our SAP Andrea Doria build, and it's just tons and tons of fun. So don't skip Brawl, right, if you're interested in just this kind of gameplay, right? It's a, I don't know, like, it's a good one to do with a couple of drinks, right? Because you just basically drive around, right? Drive around and let the AI shoot for you with the secondary. So, Brawl this, right, for 3 more days, right? So, through the weekend. I think I recorded this yesterday. So, probably 2 more days at this point. If you're watching this on Friday, right, this comes around every campaign or update or whatever. They mix in either some Brawl, variants or Arena or Ranked or whatever, right? So right now it's Brawl. And they're always different perks, right? So this you can see is all huge boosts to secondary batteries, and then they disable any torpedo tubes and main batteries, right? So you may want to tweak your commander builds for that, right, as you go in, right? So, but yeah, I don't have any, like, premium ships at tier, it's tier 5 battleships only, right? I don't have any premiums that are really good for this, and I don't, honestly, they may not, Warspite, maybe, right? Base range for secondaries that I have it up to is 6 kilometers, right? But, my number 1 pick is going to be Andrea Doria. That is what we were playing as, right in the intro clip there. And the reason for this, you got 4x3, 4 turrets of 3 guns each in the front, right? So those are, if you look over on the right, and then down the sides, right, 10x1 90mm ones, right? The max SAP shell damage on those is 2,000, and then the lower one down there in the bottom right, you get 4 turrets of 335mm guns. That max SAP damage is 3,000. So you're just able to wreck ships pretty good with this. I don't know why everyone's not using it, right? It doesn't take that long to grind through, the up to the tier 5 battleships of the Italians, right? But yeah, those main guns are in the front, your bigger, your 4-shooter, your 4 bigger turrets are towards the front, right? So you do have to keep that in mind when you're kind of driving around. My second pick would be Mackensen, right? This is the German, I don't know if these are called battle cruisers, right? But I've got, I think, a little bit better firing range for the secondaries, if you look over there, and potentially more guns, right? But they're not SAP rounds. They don't have as big of a damage, but you do have chance to light fires with these. And yeah, they're kind of just scattered all over the sides of the ship. So I found myself pretty broadside to enemies, which isn't as big of a deal since there's no main battery guns, right? But I found myself, broadside to enemies to try and get more guns firing all at once, right? To, like, just maximize damage, right? So we'll jump into we'll rewatch the melting of the California again here. And then we'll jump into a couple other full games as well. Like I said, we'll do a couple in Andrea Doria, right? These are short games, right? It's 3-on-3, tier 5 battleships, secondaries only. And as you can see, I always, if I'm doing it right anyway, I try to keep, somewhat pointed towards enemies, because on this particular ship on the Andrea Doria, right, your bigger guns, your heavier hitting secondaries are towards the front of the ship. So if you're running away from somebody, then you're not going to get, those bigger guns aren't going to be firing, right? So one thing to just keep in mind when you're playing this ship. The other big thing with both, either or really any ships with these secondary batteries, right, if you get too close to enemies, the secondaries have a tendency to aim too low at the hull. And so you'll see a lot of times where you're just getting no damage because the secondaries are hitting the hull and they can't penetrate, right? So just another thing to keep in mind, you actually do want to keep a little bit of distance between you and enemies. Now, granted, if you do get too close, like, they're going to probably run into the same issue as you. And then you notice too, we do use the prioritize, mechanic, right, where we're going to shoot at. Basically what you want to do is, if there's a ship that you notice getting lower on health, right, use the bumper, and on Xbox it's right bumper, and then point at the ship and tap Y. and that tells your secondaries to prioritize that ship, right? So any of your secondary batteries that can hit that ship will shoot at it, and then any other secondaries on your ship that can't shoot it, they'll look for other targets if possible, right? So but yeah, that game turned out to be probably my easiest one as I've played through. Right, I'm not even finished with Brawl. We'll probably play some more this weekend, but I wanted to pop a video out there of my Brawl picks. Right, so some of the games, right, that one we didn't make a lot of cash. Some of them are up in the like 100,000 range for cash too. But yeah, so I'll go into the build with this. Obviously, you're gonna pick when there's a secondary option, right? You pick that, and then for the commander, this is actually free to play commander. Michelangelo's just a commander Geist. We're using Paulo de Revel, right? So everyone can get him. He's a free commander in the store for commander XP if you've got enough, if you don't already have him, right? And then same with Franz von Hipper for an inspiration. He is almost always your must as an inspiration for any secondary build, whether it's Brawl or regular games, right? So he's a good one to max out if you do any sort of builds for, get him leveled up, because that'll help you out there. I'm using Haruna for the second spot, but there are plenty of choices for, other picks there. Just if you're focusing on Brawl, right, you'd want to make sure you pick another inspiration that's a secondary focus, right? You might have something different there. So that'll be the thing, right? Like where the base trade on this commander is kind of wasted because, well, their main batteries don't exist, right? And so, yeah, you would want to just make sure you're not picking something that is, main gun focus, right? And then you could do Master Mechanic. I wouldn't recommend it. I would still recommend Properly Meticulous for this. And then just to have that extra boost for secondaries. And then I absolutely would go Will to Rebuild, right? The maps are kind of shrunk down since it's 3-on-3. You're almost always close enough to an ally for that Will to Rebuild to be triggered. And then if you do get low on health, right, you can, your ship moves fast enough, you can usually chase down an ally and get into Will to Rebuild range. And then you'll just, survival, right? So it happens a ton with this kind of gameplay here, right? As using Will to Rebuild like almost every single game. And then, yeah, here again, I think this might be a good example of where I just got too close to somebody and you'll see the difference here, right? So there's another Andrea Doria out there, and you can see he's got us down to like half health already too, right? So I'm trying to back up a little bit. I've got a California here with me. I'm trying to see if maybe he could take some of the heat off of me, right? And this would be this Andrea Doria's mistake, right? If he doesn't prioritize me, right, then his secondaries are going to start shooting that California, and then we'll survive and live to fight another day, right? But we're definitely getting Will to Rebuild off of the California here. And then, yeah, I was trying to get myself... He must have prioritized me because he's not even shooting the California, and the California is closer. But anyway, right, so we're just going to let the secondaries do their job, right? And then we'll just try and stay... Since we're so low on health, we're going to try and stay near an ally, right? And with the shrunken maps, you can see on the mini-map, my, legendary perk circle looks absolutely ginormous, right? So, but yeah, we'll try and get rid of this Andrea Doria. I think we're both running into the same situation here. You can see we're not doing hardly any damage. I think only every once in a while when we get lucky. And so that's just because we're too close, right? The shells are... The bullets, guys, the bullets are hitting the hull, and they're not big enough to penetrate. We are probably doing pretty good damage to that Bayern over there, right? Which I'm not even hardly paying attention to. And then, yeah, so I tend to put out fires right away. Use my heals every time they come up, and then use the secondary boosters almost every time it's available, right? So just kind of something. Yeah, here we go, 800 damage there. But yeah, just an obnoxious amount of hits for 0 damage, right? So yeah, we take down the Bayern because he's far enough out that the shells are actually arching and hitting either upper plating or superstructure, right, instead of the hull. And so that's why we're kind of failing with the going against this Andrea Doria here, right? We're just too close to each other for those shells to arch enough to actually hit anything viable, right? So something to keep in mind when you're playing this game mode for this time around. But yeah, we take out the Heinrich. I'm not even looking at him, right? I'm trying to figure out how to kill this Andrea Doria over here. And then yes, if you super smart move, right? If you've got the numbers, right? If you're up and you've got ships, right? If your team is winning and you're low on health, go for the ram, right? I'm always a fan of the ram for the win. Yeah, we made a little bit more cash there, right? But like I said, the games are nice and short here. So we'll do one more Andrea Doria game, then we'll do a Mackensen game just to kind of show you the difference and the viability of it. That would be my second choice. I see a lot of people in here playing all sorts of different stuff, but you will see a lot of Andrea Dorias and Mackensens, right? For sure, right? So, but yeah, we just kind of melt him away. And we'll prioritize him just because he's super low. I want to make sure that like somebody else gets closer. I want to make sure we try and finish off the battleship, right? So anybody that's low on health, you want to tell your secondaries to prioritize that ship to try and get them off the board, and that's going to give you the game momentum and get you the wins usually, right? So, but he goes out of line of sight for us, so the secondaries are shooting everybody else now at this point. And then, yeah, I'm trying to keep some distance, and I'm trying to keep myself sort of bow into them because that's where my bigger guns are. But yeah, if we get, if you do notice, that's the other thing you could do, right? If you're too close to somebody and your secondaries are kind of just wasted on them, right? You could tell your secondaries to prioritize somebody further out so that you could do damage to them that way, right? So just stuff to keep in mind. I didn't do that too much while I was playing, at least not this time around, but that would have been a smart thing for me to do when we were trying to kill that Andrea Doria in that last game, right? could have picked on somebody else while we were too close to him, but we'll use the heal, and like I said, I'm using damage con almost instantly every time I get lit on fire. And then since I'm low on health, I'm trying to head towards my ally so that we could have will to rebuild if we need it. But of course, we're up a ship now at this point, so I think we might have this game won as well. We'll trigger the secondary booster since we've started firing. And then, yeah, we're close enough for will to rebuild. Right, and you gotta think, too, your allies might be running will to rebuild as well. Just at least for this game mode, right? So, you might be helping them out also if you notice them getting low. But yeah, we melt him pretty quickly as well. We'll take a quick peek at this leaderboard for this last Andrea Doria game. They go quick, right? They got top spot there, and 32,000. So not the greatest silver earning game. I thought I could have sworn I had some that were up in the 100,000 range, which would be nice because then you'd be getting, right, like a 5-minute game, right? That'd be pretty decent credit earnings. But here we are in the Mackensen, and so same kind of thing, right? You do get, the sonar is kind of not really useful. And I'll go through the build, how I have it for this commander as well, right? How to set up this one, at least my preference. But yeah, we'll use the heals and the secondary targeting booster, right, every time we get them available. And then you do have the sonar, but like I did find maybe once, right, where I had somebody out of line of sight and they were close to me, right? So I tripped sonar to like pick them up through the island, so that way my allies could do it, could potentially shoot them, but otherwise, it's not going to be a big deal, right? It's all battleships. There's no destroyers. There's no torpedoes, right? So doesn't really matter. Hyuga's getting low on health, so we will tell the secondaries to prioritize him. And then it's going to be another similar situation too, where, right, if you're going to get too close, you might not be doing that much damage that often. The nice thing with the Mackensen is you do trigger fires on them, right? So I suppose if you were going up to like in a division, I'd go like 2 Andrea Dorias and a Mackensen, right? We'll trigger the heal. We're going to continue to try and stay close to our allies. And yeah, this is where, we'd get a little bit, you might do better close range with Mackensen just because you could trigger those fires, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, you could see we just weren't doing that much damage just because we were so close. Alright, we'll circle around. We do have the numbers here, so I was kind of thinking I could maybe ram somebody, especially since I'm low on health. And then you do have a limited number of damage control parties with Mackensen. It really never was a problem for me here. I was still using them pretty much every single time I got lit on fire. But yeah, I do have the build, the commander perks, right, that we've got picked do give you a couple extra of those. Which is nice too, and that would be my recommendation and way to go, right? So we'll use another one. We'll have one more left here, and then I was gonna try and ram. What is this? A Bayern? Right? I was gonna try and ram him. It's kind of hard to do, right? Like I thought for sure I'd have him here, which would be a good trade, right? Because he's got more health than I do. But then, like, he's just moving too quickly because of the game mechanic tweaks for Brawl here, right? So I'll use my last damage con. And we do have one more heal as well, so we'll trip that. And then I'll try and start heading towards an ally to get Will to rebuild if we need it, but it is 3-on-1 at this point, so it shouldn't be a big deal. And then, yeah, we're so close, we're not hardly doing any damage. All right, we'll take a peek at the leaderboard here for this game, and then I will go through the commander build. And I am using a paid commander on here, so I will show you what you would use as an alternate to that is honestly is just as good, right? It's always slight. It's always this tiny little extra perk or thing with these paid commanders, right? So, but yeah, you're gonna want to use the secondary battery mod 2 for sure, right? So if you don't have that, you'll want to switch it out. And then we're using this Izzy right person. She has a base trait of more damage with to battleships, which is great. And then inspirations, Franz von Hipper is your must again. Haruna, right? You kind of same situation. And then yeah, this top row, just make sure you don't have it set for something that at least while you're playing Brawl here, make sure you don't have it set for something that gives a perk to a main battery. I did pick this highly educated crew over Porcupine because it gives you the 2 extra damage control parties, but you could pick Porcupine, right? I switched it to that just for, right? I think when I'm in normal gameplay, I normally use this commander on like my regular battleship lines as opposed to these Mackensens, like the battle cruiser, I guess, right? And so I did tweak a couple other things, right? I would normally use secondary interest, right? But I switched that to Will to Rebuild just for this game mode. Right, and I said, like, I don't like her on my like battle cruiser lines, right? So I've changed a couple of the like perk choices here specifically for Brawl, and then I don't actually use her. What I normally use for these ships, right, is this commander. So this would be your alternate one. This is Auto Celiacs, right? So I have a Geist over it, right, to make the cool shell tracers, right? But Auto Celiacs is free to play commander, right? So you could pick him up if you don't have him from either commander crates, or you can buy him for commander XP in the store. But almost the same thing, same kind of thing here, right? Franz von Hipper for inspiration, and then you for your second choice there. And then yeah, the only thing would be here, his base trait's kind of wasted. You can't do anything about that. But then just make sure you pick anything. Don't pick anything that has to do with main battery, right? So you might have to tweak it from how you normally have it built. And then I went with highly educated crew here again. He does have this additional perk that boosts secondary perks, right? And then I picked properly meticulous here. And then, of course, a Will to Rebuild, again, right, would be my choice, right? I know for, like, standard game mode, a lot of people might prefer, like, Fight Fire with Fire and stuff like that, which would make sense. But I think for this particular brawling game mode, I think Will to Rebuild is definitely the way to go. So make sure you switch that out. And then, of course, once Brawl is over, you got to make sure you go in there and switch your commander stuff back to what you would normally use it as. But this is the Andrea Doria, right, that we will finish out the video with. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts and feelings in the comments. I try and do Legends videos every single day, so please do make sure to subscribe to the channel. I do appreciate that. I'm still kind of a small channel, so new people are noticed, and thank you for being here. But yeah, if you are following, I do Legends videos every day, like I said, so I'll probably see you guys tomorrow.